Hey there, horror fans! Welcome back to my channel where we dive deep into the eerie, the spooky, and sometimes the downright ridiculous realms of horror cinema. Today, we're unearthing a relic from the late 90s, a sequel that dared to ask the question, what if evil not only never dies but tries to bore you to death as well? Yes, folks, we're talking about Wishmaster 2, Evil Never Dies, released in 1999. Directed by Jack Shoulder and starring Andrew Divoff, Holly Fields, and Paul Johansson, this film attempts to continue the malevolent misadventures of everyone's favorite wish-twisting Djinn. So, grab your lucky rabbit's foot, say a little prayer, and let's delve into this sequel that might just make you wish for a better script. Wishmaster 2 kicks off with a botched museum heist. Our protagonist, Morgana, played by Holly Fields, gets roped into stealing precious artifacts. Things go south quickly when a shootout ensues between the thieves and security guards. In the chaos, the opal prison of the Djinn shatters. Cue the ominous music, and our favorite evil genie, once again portrayed by Andrew Divoff, is unleashed upon the world. Morgana, racked with guilt over the death of her partner in crime and perhaps some cosmic bad vibes from awakening ancient evil, seeks solace and guidance from her former flame-turned-priest, Gregory, portrayed by Paul Johansson. Meanwhile, the Djinn, now in human form as Nathaniel Demarest, gets himself arrested and sent to prison. Why prison, you ask? Well, where else can you find a plethora of souls ready to make desperate wishes? It's like a buffet for an evil genie. But here's the twist, or should I say the stretch. This time around, the Djinn needs to collect 1,001 souls to initiate his master plan. Yes, you heard that right. In the first film, a handful of souls sufficed, but sequels are all about upping the ante, even if it doesn't quite make sense. Now, let's talk about the plot, or at least what passes for one. The story feels like a patchwork of ideas that never fully mesh together. We have the criminal-turned-reluctant hero trope with Morgana, the faith versus evil angle with Father Gregory, and the Djinn's soul-harvesting side quest in prison. The religion can defeat true evil cliché is laid on pretty thick. Morgana's crisis of faith leads her down a path of self-punishment and redemption that feels forced and, frankly, uninspired. She attempts to combat the Djinn's evil with religious artifacts and rituals, only to be met with his indifference or amusement. It's as if the film wants to explore theological themes but doesn't commit enough to say anything meaningful. And speaking of the Djinn, his reactions to these religious attempts are a mixed bag. On one hand, he scoffs at crosses and holy water, understandably, since he's an ancient entity predating these symbols. On the other hand, the film seems to suggest that faith is the key to defeating him, creating a confusing message that doesn't resolve satisfactorily. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, the shift in the Djinn's soul quota. In the original Wishmaster, the Djinn needed to grant 3 wishes to the one who awakened him to unleash his brethren upon the world. Simple, straightforward, and effective. In Wishmaster 2, the rules change without much explanation. Suddenly, the Djinn needs to collect 1,001 souls. Why 1,001? Is he moonlighting as Scheherazade from 1,001 Nights? The film never clarifies this arbitrary number, leaving us scratching our heads. This change drastically affects the pacing of the movie. We spend a significant amount of time watching the Djinn in prison, coercing inmates into making wishes that, of course, backfire horribly. While some of these scenes provide mild amusement, they quickly become repetitive. Let's talk about the wishes themselves, the supposed bread and butter of the Wishmaster series. In the first film, the twisted interpretations of wishes were delightfully macabre and creative. In Wishmaster 2, we get a few moments that capture a sliver of that dark charm. The infamous, "I wish my lawyer would screw himself" scene is one such instance. It's absurd, slightly humorous, and carries that ironic punishment vibe we expect. However, many of the wish sequences are underwhelming. The film leans towards humor rather than horror, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if done correctly. Unfortunately, the comedic elements often fall flat or feel out of place amidst the darker tones the movie sporadically attempts to maintain. And then there's the casino scene in Las Vegas, a nod to the grand set pieces of the original. People are attacked by playing cards, a woman becomes part of a slot machine, and chaos ensues. It's the film's attempt at an epic finale, but due to budget constraints, it lacks the polish and impact of its predecessor. Speaking of budgets, Wishmaster 2 had a significantly smaller pot of gold to play with, around $2.5 million compared to the original's $5 million. This reduction is evident in the quality of the special effects and overall production value. The practical effects that made the original so visually engaging are scaled back. The gore is toned down, and the makeup effects for the Djinn are less impressive. The film tries to compensate by focusing more on the story and character development, which, unfortunately, aren't strong enough to carry the film. Andrew Divoff's performance as the Djinn remains a highlight. He brings a sinister charisma to the role, delivering lines with a menacing smirk that suggests he's having more fun than anyone else on set. His portrayal is the glue holding this shaky sequel together. However, even Divoff can only do so much with the material he's given. The script confines him mostly to his human disguise, limiting the opportunities for the Djinn's true form to wreak havoc on screen. Let's not forget the supporting characters. Holly Fields as Morgana does her best with the role, but the character is inconsistently written. Morgana oscillates between a guilt-ridden thief seeking redemption and a determined protagonist ready to face ancient evil. Her transformation feels rushed, and her actions don't always make sense, which makes it hard to root for her. Paul Johansson's Father Gregory serves as the voice of faith and reason. His character embodies the priest with a past trope, and while he provides a counterbalance to Morgana's rebellious nature, their chemistry is lacking. The prison scenes introduce us to a slew of characters who serve as fodder for the Djinn's soul collection. Among them is Tiny Lister's character, a tough inmate who meets an absurd end in a dance sequence orchestrated by the Djinn. Yes, you heard that right, a dance sequence in prison. It's moments like these that leave you questioning the creative choices made. Continuity is another issue that plagues Wishmaster 2. The film doesn't adhere to the rules established in the first installment. In the original, the Djinn is bound to grant 3 wishes to the person who awakens him, with the third wish unleashing his fellow Djinn to take over the world. In the sequel, when Morgana attempts to make her 3 wishes, the Djinn dismisses them if they don't serve his purpose. This selective wish-granting undermines the established lore and removes the tension that comes from the Djinn's manipulative wordplay. Also, the film fails to explore new aspects of the Djinn mythology. Instead of expanding the universe or introducing fresh concepts, it regurgitates old ideas without the charm or intrigue that made them work previously. Now, let's touch on the film's themes or attempts at themes. The good versus evil narrative is painted with broad strokes. The incorporation of religious elements feels shallow and sometimes contradictory. The film toys with the idea of redemption and the power of faith but doesn't delve deeply enough to make a compelling statement. At times, it feels like Wishmaster 2 is trying to be several different movies at once. A horror flick, a supernatural thriller, a crime drama, and a theological exploration, all without committing to any fully. The result is a disjointed narrative that struggles to maintain coherence and hold the audience's interest. By the time the credits roll, you're left with more questions than answers and perhaps a sense of disappointment. Now, let's sum things up with our ratings. Story 3 of 10. The plot recycles elements from the original but fails to inject new life or creativity. The overused religion versus evil cliché weighs down the narrative, and the lack of adherence to established lore undermines the story's integrity. Blood, 5 of 10. The casino scene offers a glimpse of the gore and chaos we expect from a Wishmaster film, but overall, the bloodshed is minimal and less impactful. The attempts at shocking visuals are hindered by the limited budget and subpar effects. Boobs, 1 of 10. For those wondering about the film's foray into sensuality, it's practically non-existent. The film opts for tight clothing over any explicit content, which might disappoint some viewers expecting the typical horror movie tropes. Overall, 4 of 10. Despite Andrew Divoff's commendable performance and a few entertaining moments, Wishmaster 2, Evil Never Dies falls short as a sequel. It's bogged down by a weak script, inconsistent storytelling, and a failure to capture the magic of the original. Wishmaster 2 is a classic example of a sequel that misses the mark. It had the potential to build upon a fascinating mythology and deliver a thrilling horror experience. Instead, it settles for half-baked ideas and lackluster execution. If you're a die-hard fan of the first film or enjoy watching sequels out of curiosity, you might find some value in giving this one a watch. Otherwise, it might be best to let this genie stay in its bottle. But hey, every cinephile's journey includes watching a few duds, right? It helps us appreciate the good ones even more. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this review, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of horror. Let me know in the comments what you thought of Wishmaster 2, or if there's another film you'd like me to dissect. Until next time, keep your wishes simple and stay spooky.